order, a war for gold, a war for money, and a war for souls. A war on terror, a war on drugs, a war on kindness, a war on hugs, a war on birds, and a war on bees. They got a war on hippies trying to save it.
Hi, I'm Liz Reese, and welcome to Voices of Resistance. Today's program is devoted to 1 Billion Rising for Justice. 1 Billion Rising is a global day of action demanding an end to violence against women and girls. It was initiated in 2013 when 1 billion people in hundreds of countries and on 6 continents rallied for justice. This day, of course, takes place on February 14th, also known as Valentine's Day, V-Day, and now known as 1 Billion Rising for Justice Day. I'd like to read a short statement from the campaign of the 1 Billion Rising website. 1 Billion Rising for Justice is a global call to women survivors of violence and those who love them to gather safely in community outside places where they are entitled to justice. Courthouses, police stations, government offices, school administration buildings, workplaces, sites of environmental injustice, military courts, embassies, places of worship, homes, or simply public gathering places where women deserve to feel safe, but too often do not. It is a call to survivors to break the silence and release their stories, politically, spiritually, outrageously, through art, dance, marches, ritual, song, spoken word, testimonies, and whatever way feels right. Our stories have been buried, denied, erased, altered, and minimized by patriarchal systems that allow impunity to reign. Justice begins when we speak, release, and acknowledge the truth in solidarity and community. 1 Billion Rising for Justice is an invitation to break free from confinement, obligation, shame, guilt, grief, pain, humiliation, rage, and bondage. The campaign is a recognition that we cannot end violence against women without looking at the intersection of poverty, racism, war, the plunder of the environment, capitalism, imperialism, and patriarchy. Impunity lives at the heart of these interlocking forces. It is a call to bring on revolutionary justice. So that's a pretty strong call, if I do say so myself. So hopefully some of the viewers are familiar with 1 Billion Rising, and maybe some of you even participated either in last year's local event in 2013 or this year's event for 1 Billion Rising, which took place at Magic Island. I was at both of those events that happened here locally in Honolulu. And, you know, while I support the events and thought they were, you know, a cool place to gather and talk about violence against women, I have to admit, at the time, especially last year, I wasn't really aware or understanding the effect that this global day of action really has. So that's why I wanted to actually do a whole program on it and show events happening from all around the world. So the first thing I want to show you is actually from events that happened last year in 2013. It's actually an amazing film that was really well done. It's a compilation from 2013, and it was done up as a short documentary, and it was an entry at the Sundance Film Festival. So I think it will give you an awesome idea of what 1 Billion Rising is all about.
Well, it is Valentine's Day like no
To mark
other.
Valentine's Day, the 1 billion rising
1 billion rising campaign.
Dünya çapında 1 milyar kadın kadına şiddete
1 billion women will be
Every 2 minutes, somewhere in the United States, someone is sexually assaulted.
Próbáljuk támogatni, illetve felhívni a figyelmet.
Well, 1 billion rising is a movement which calls for an end to violence and gender inequality.
The global campaign dubbed 8 billion rising.
Somali women in Mogadishu have joined the world in
fact, in every village you will see scenes like these.
Nakles Road'lo 1 billion rising జరుగుతోంది.
Birazdan burada kentteki ikinci eylem dansını
1 billion rising campaign all in full swing across the world.
Everybody should be here. This is a call for 1 billion rising.
Filipinos in London and around the world are part of a campaign against violence towards women.
Jago re jago. India jago.
So everyone's dancing all over the world.
It's part of a global revolution.
In more than 205 countries today, people are rising.
I want to tell you, you are making history. This has never happened before in the world, that 200 countries have come together.
This thing that we are part of today has never happened in the history of the world.
So that was a short film that was done showing many of the different events that took place worldwide for 1 Billion Rising in 2013. And as you can see from the film, not only is it extremely well done and the images are so beautiful, but it is just so powerful and so liberating to see all those women and men and children rising up across the world, standing up for justice. So I can't say enough amazing things about that film. And you know, while it's a wonderful thing to go to an event in your area, you know, there are local events happening all across for 1 Billion Rising, it's a very different thing to see it in that context of standing with people all across the globe. It's just really, really powerful. So I want to talk a little bit about Eve Ensler, who was the initiator for 1 Billion Rising for Justice. Eve Ensler, as many of you know, was the award-winning playwright who did the Vagina Monologues, which when the Vagina Monologues came out really gave women a lot of freedom and confidence and power to talk about their bodies and their sexuality. She also initiated V-Day, which took place, I believe, started 16 years ago. And V-Day was similar to 1 Billion Rising, but it wasn't on the global scale, intersecting all these different global issues that are affecting women and the planet. It was more done raising awareness and also raising money for domestic violence and violence that's happening to women and girls. And she really felt the need, while V-Day events were awesome and happening across the country, really wanted to take it to a whole other level, so to speak. So I'd like to read a quote from Eve Ensler. Eve Ensler said, "I was obsessed with the statistic that 1 in 3 women on the planet will be raped or beaten in her lifetime, which is equal to over 1 billion women." So it's so amazing to me that Eve Ensler takes this really horrible fact that 1 in 3 women on the planet are raped and beaten, and she kind of turns it on its flip side, so to speak, and has 1 billion people rising up for liberation and justice. So it's a pretty amazing concept when you think about it. So I'm going to show a really short clip of Eve Ensler talking about 1 Billion Rising. Check it out.
Until the dots are connected, and the silence is broken, and the story is told. Until each part of the struggle is integrated and whole. Until the law is a living, breathing thing. Until every violence is part of the violence we seek to end. Until every caste, every race, every sexuality and gender. Until there is one story. Until we stop forcing poor women into buildings on the verge of collapse, or into garbage sites or back alleys to make a meager living. Until we stop sending raped women home to places where they will be raped again. Until we stop seizing and destroying the land of the indigenous. Until we honor the women who were raped and murdered in war, in cities, military barracks, factories, refugee camps, homes, churches, colleges, schools, on buses, in marriage beds, in forests or work fields and offices. Until we refuse the occupation and excavation of our bodies, bases, fields, resources, and hearts. Not with more bombs, not with more death, not with more pain. Until each violation is uttered and each hurt is shared, until the layers of memories and oppression are uncovered and bared, until the law serves the poorest and stops protecting the mighty, until we are held by the same standards, until women rise in the knowledge of their value and rights, outside courthouses, mines, police stations, nuclear sites, government offices, workplaces, military courts, embassies, places of worship, homes, until we release our shame, our grief, our humiliation and rage, until apologies and reparations are made by governments, leaders, husbands, boyfriends, fathers, brothers, priests, mullahs, ministers, uncles, bosses, and corporate heads, until we refuse to accept anything that does not include all, 1 billion will rise for justice. February 14th, 2014.
So that was Eve Ensler, and something I really appreciate both about Eve Ensler and the whole 1 billion Rising for Justice movement is that they really are connecting the dots, so to speak, of all the issues that are connected. As one of the statements for 1 billion Rising was, we cannot end violence against women without ending all intersecting forms of oppression and injustice: poverty, racism, homophobia, war, the plunder of the environment, capitalism, imperialism, and patriarchy. And I just really appreciate the fact that they're really bringing all these issues together as part of one big picture. And as an activist with World Can't Wait also tries to connect all the dots and take up all the issues. And though there are many separate issues World Can't Wait takes up, speaking out against torture, against war, against drone killings, police brutality, mass incarceration, speaking up for choice and for abortion rights, and the list goes on and on. While there are all these, individual issues, we see them all connected as well, with the slogan for World Can't Wait being humanity and the planet come first. So I really see similarities with World Can't Wait and the 1 billion Rising for Justice campaign. I'd like to read a very short statement. This is from the 1 billion Rising for Justice website, and I encourage people to check it out as well. There's a ton of information, so I encourage people to support it and check it out. This is just a small part of the section on prisons, but I was really happy that they included it in part of the campaign of talking about violence against women and girls. The United States, with 5% of the world's population and a staggering 25% of the world's prisoners, has created a system of mass incarceration, with 2.3 million people behind bars and nearly 5 million more on probation or parole. The vast majority of this massive incarcerated population is poor, Black, and Hispanic, with women being the fastest growing segment. Injustice in correctional institutions is widespread. Sexual abuse is rampant, and few prisoners are provided adequate access to health care. Excuse me. Many women lose their parental rights, and some are forced to give birth in shackles. The 1 billion Rising for Justice U.S. Prisons Project is asking one of the most pressing questions of our time. What could true justice look like? Can we imagine systems of justice that examine the roots of violence and illuminate how racism, oppression, poverty, and economic inequity create violence? So I thought it was important that they included that in talking about the prisons and the mass incarceration that's happening in the United States. So you saw a really awesome film of events that took place in 2013. Now I want to show you some events that just took place recently for 1 billion Rising in 2014. And once again, that was on February 14th and happened all across the world. The first one I'm going to show you is from Kazon City in the Philippines. And there was a lot of...
Arms to the sky. On my knees, I pray. I'm not afraid of anymore. I walk through that door.
So that was a pretty amazing event that happened in Kazon City in the Philippines. And in that clip, you could hear the song Break the Chain, which was the anthem, and see women and girls doing the dance. And I have to admit, as I was talking a little bit earlier, you know, when I first heard about 1 Billion Rising in 2013, you know, while I thought it was cool and supported it, I gotta be honest, I thought the song was pretty cheesy. And while the dance was cool, I was kind of like, you know, what's up with this Zumba thing? Why are people doing this? Like, I just don't really get it. And when you see people across the globe, and women and girls of all ages around the whole planet singing the same song and doing the same dance, it is so powerful to me. And I've changed my mind. It's now one of my most favorite songs and my most favorite dances. So if you don't know the dance, you can learn it on the website, and there's lots of YouTube videos and the words to the song Break the Chain, which was initiated by some V-Day activists and some singers out of New York. The next clip you're going to see is of a flash mob in Egypt, and you'll see even in Egypt they're doing the song and doing the dance. So check out Egypt. So that was in Egypt, and now moving around the globe, because there was so many events for 1 Billion Rising for Justice. I'm going to show you a clip that took place in Italy. So that was a 1 Billion Rising event that took place in Italy, and now we're going to move on to Prague in the Czech Republic, where some women are talking about cyber violence.
1 billion strong.
We're trying to get the whole world to rise.
Can all be wrong.
We're trying to get 1 billion people worldwide to rise against violence against women and girls.
No longer
Lidi mají možnost veřejně se přihlásit k tématu násilí na ženách, nejen v České republice, ale tím, že je to vlastně celosvětový dopad, tak je o to víc to téma, jakékoliv, která země zvolí, vidět.
Open your eyes, you're not alone. We hear the cry, 1 billion strong. Can you hear the call?
This year we decided quite a specific issue to tackle, and that's cyber violence.
Cyber violence is an incredibly underreported crime, not only in the Czech Republic but worldwide, but it's really not getting enough attention at all.
Come on, dance, revolution, dance, revolution, unite, dance, revolution, dance, revolution.
In the last months there are many attacks not only on the women as victims of violence but also on those people helping them. I think many people are not aware of all the types and forms that violence can take, and they don't realize that other people helping the victims might actually be threatened themselves.
Dance, come on, revolution, can you hear the dance, revolution, unite, dance, revolution, can you hear the dance, revolution, tonight.
We also hope that this might help to create some kind of pressure on our political representatives to adopt new laws and guarantee more security for the victims of violence.
Ultimately, it takes men to stop violence against women.
Men shouldn't be bad to women. You should like them and make them happy. If a man is mean to you, you should leave.
So the next clip I'm going to show you is not of an event that took place. It was actually a short film that was done prior to February 14th in 1 Billion Rising, and it was done in order to build for the event. Now, it's a pretty heavy short film, I gotta forewarn you, but I think it's very powerful, and you'll see why. This short film is from Davao City in the Philippines, in Mindanao. So as you could see, it's a pretty heavy, short film. What I appreciate about it, as I should say, is one of the things 1 Billion Rising talks about is turning women's pain and oppression into power. So you can see why a powerful short film like that would be used to really build for a movement of bringing 1 billion people together to stand up against the abuse and violence and degradation that 1 in 3 women goes through on the planet. So I think it's pretty powerful. Before I show you the next clip, I'd like to read just a short part of a statement on climate justice. Earlier, I read part of a statement on prisons. And once again, both of these are from the 1billionrising.org website. And I encourage people to check out that website. But I was really glad that they included a statement about climate change, and this is about climate justice. And I'm just going to read a very small part of it. The impacts of climate change and environmental degradation are different for women and men. Women from low-income communities, indigenous women, and those in developing countries bear a heavier burden from the impacts of climate change because they are more reliant upon natural resources for survival, or they inhabit areas with poor infrastructure, or their rights are being violated. Due to extreme and increasing droughts, women and girls in Africa have to walk long distances to fetch drinking water, foregoing economic opportunities and education. Women walk further into the forest to search for fuel wood, putting them more at risk to be attacked and raped. Women make up 20 of the 26 million estimated refugees displaced by climate change, comprising 80% of the world's climate refugees. We can't ignore the historical and interrelated destructive treatment of both women and nature in our current dominator model of societies. The long-standing history of violating the earth and violating women is deeply rooted in the same problem and societal imbalances. To achieve long-term solutions, we will need to deal with root causes and systemic change, and this will mean liberating the silenced and oppressed voices of women and nature. Together, we stand for the earth and future generations. I thought that was a cool statement of tying in the oppression of women and climate justice. So the next clip I'm going to show you is actually from the Congo, and it's at a rescue center for girls. And in the Congo, of course, where rape is a huge crisis. I thought this was a pretty powerful clip of young women and girls in the Congo.
ready for justice. My body, my life, my head. My body, my head. My body, my head. My body, my life. My body, my life. We are ready for justice. 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 When we look at the sky, tears of pain roll down our cheeks. Whenever we remember what our community said, was it our goal to be born girls? Our hearts cry silently whenever we remember the suffering we undergo, sleepless nights, being of war, and hatred. Do we have to be mistreated because we are girls? Our education, you say it's a waste of money. You don't consider our rights. You take all boys to school. You leave us home stranded just because we are girls. Our community, don't struggle to stumble our ability. We can do everything that boys do. Give us a chance and improve it. Pleasure.
Wazi huu muziko wewe nakwambia picha mtu anatumana hivi.
So the last clip I'm going to show you is actually from Hong Kong, and it's migrant workers coming together, and it's a really powerful, awesome event that took place for 1 Billion Rising in Hong Kong.
Arms to the sky, on my knees, I pray. I'm not afraid anymore. I will walk through that door.
So I hope all of these different clips that I've chosen to show you kind of give you a better idea and understanding at how awesome 1 Billion Rising for Justice really is. And if you want to check out more clips, there's, unlimited amount available online. You can Google it or YouTube it, and there is stuff coming out. A lot of it is still raw and unedited, but, you can spend hours and hours and hours watching different clips from all around the globe of people who stood up and rose up together. And I myself have learned what an important event this is, and I hope you have too. And I hope you participate in next year's 1 Billion Rising for Justice. And I also hope it sends the message that, if you're really going to fight against violence against women and girls, then you have to be looking at all the other issues that are involved. And as I talked about over and over from the 1 Billion Rising statements, the issues that all come together forming oppression and injustice, such as poverty, racism, homophobia, war, the plunder of the environment, capitalism, imperialism, and patriarchy. So it's really important that people stand up together, and how awesome to have 1 billion people standing up and rising up together for justice on the same day. Now, we just got to have the whole planet doing it all together. That would be even cooler. Since I'm talking about, violence against women and girls, I have to end the show by talking about abortion rights. I didn't have time to read a statement by Sansara Taylor, who's a writer for Revolution newspaper, and her statement about 1 Billion Rising recently appeared on the 1 Billion Rising website. But she talks about a lot of issues, including abortion rights. And I don't think you can talk about the whole spectrum of violence against women and girls and not talk about the fight to take away abortion rights. When women don't have the right to control their own body and make their own decisions regarding their well-being, that is violence against women, and that is controlling women. And as people know, I've devoted many shows on Voices of Resistance talking about abortion rights. And I really quickly want to end it with a plug. The other night I saw an amazing film that just showed. I saw it at the Doris Duke Theater called After Tiller. And Planned Parenthood and some other folks put it on. It was an amazing film talking about the very small handful, I'm talking 4 doctors across the country that provide late-term abortions for women. And it talked about the doctors' lives and the patients and what they go through, and these very, very courageous doctors that stand up and do what's right for women. So you can't talk about all these issues and not talk about the struggle for abortion rights. So I hope you enjoyed watching Voices of Resistance, and stand up for 1 Billion Rising for Justice.